Okay, so there's about 2 people here, and then 2 online. Deb, are you gonna stay in here? Oh, okay,
Second shot at her.
okay. I would love to know, to start with, why everyone is attending this specific class. And what you want to get out of it.
I am not a naturally curious person,
Yeah.
so I'm just hoping to find spaces to do so.
Okay. When you say naturally curious person, do you mean personally and professionally?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Anyone online? Awesome, this is gonna be great. Okay, so this is one of 4 of the steps for the 6 personal perspectives. I don't know how many of you went to any of the last ones. Is this changing?
Want me to share? Oh, here I have here's a chat.
Jacqueline, I'm trying to learn as much as possible. She can only be here for about 30 minutes, so soak it in. You want me to just put the screen on?
Yeah, you can just put the screen on. Can you move forward to the next slide? Just this little clicker is not working today. I would love for you to take about 1 minute and say and kind of make a definition of what a learning-based individual is. So what do you mean? Okay, what do we got? What are our definitions? Don't click it yet. Throw out some words. Learning-based individuals. What did you guys write?
Online, someone says, open mind, wants to become better.
Okay, what else?
I think always growing, growth-minded, seeking new things.
Okay. All right, so the actual definition that they have is an individual who's made the decision to use effective learning as the foundation piece of their action plan to develop their life. You can click on that. So when I look at this particular definition, right, the things that stick out for me is 1, you make a decision, right? So I think a lot of people think that in anything, right? It's like, oh, no, it just happened. Learning based is not something that just happens. You will learn, right? And you go to school, we went to school, you have to be there for 12 years, yada, yada, yada. That was not necessarily a decision on you as an individual, right? But there's a difference when you show up somewhere and you make the decision to show up and be present versus just going to trainings. I think we've talked a lot about in different situations where I'm like, we go to trainings, right? And all of a sudden it's like, well, I went for 3 hours and I didn't really get anything from it. Not one thing, right? Number 1, there's a few reasons why. Either you got forced to go to the training, you didn't want to go. You weren't mentally there because you were busy with other things, right? A lot of times we're sitting on computers or we're, texting or whatever it is, right? So for me, it was, you made a decision, right? 2, what's something else that stuck out to you guys?
Effective learning.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. So effective learning, what does that mean?
It has a purpose.
Okay. What else?
It also has like a plan to get to that.
Okay. It makes sense, right? Because a lot of times you'll learn something and you have, like, it doesn't make sense, right? So. Okay, and then, I mean, the other piece I like about this is it's the foundation. Right? And not just like the foundation, but it's the foundation of the action plan. So how many times, honestly, do we go to training and we're like, we learned all this great stuff? I'm gonna give a great example. Team meeting 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I think both of them actually, we talked about multiple offers, right? Everyone was like, man, I would really like some clauses. I'd like to, know what to say in these particular situations. I'd like to know how to write the best offer. I spent 2.5 hours writing an email. Like putting it together, right? Getting examples. How many people do you think looked at that email out of this office?
Open to the email.
And that's just open. How many do you think it was?
5%?
Just 50% opened it.
Okay,
Okay.
that's good.
How many clicks do you think on any of the clauses that I wrote in there? Example, cover letters, all of those. How many clicks do you think, or how many people do you think clicked on that? We have 148-ish agents in this office.
Out of 50 people that opened it.
It was probably like 90, well, I mean, because it really
Oh,
gets sent to
50%,
admin, everybody, so it's 171 people. 3
Oh, wow.
3 people clicked on any of those things. 3 agents in the office. One of them only clicked on it because he was on the ALC, and I text and goes, nobody read this, right? So there's a difference when we make a decision, right? Like in your normal life, you all of a sudden react, right? You're like, I want this, I need this information. Yet you don't do anything with it, or you say you need it because you need it in that moment. You don't actually take it and learn with it, right? So I'm like, that's the difference of like the foundation piece of action, right? So you can have the information, but if you take no action with it, the information is just information for information. Right?
For future use.
Right, and sometimes it gets lost, right? Because you might have the information and then all of a sudden it's like, our brains can only hold so much. Okay, and then it says, part of this foundation plan to actually develop your life. Can you go back to think of the first time you ever learned anything? What was it? And you don't have to remember what it was, but what would it be if as a child, right?
Tying your shoes.
Tying your shoes, okay? Brushing your teeth. Learning to walk.
My neighbor just learned how to ride a bike.
Ride a bike, which they say you learn your whole life. However, when you get back on one after a while, it's not as easy. Okay? But there's different things we learn along the way to develop our life. Communication, right? The funny thing about communication is it's always developing depending on what you're working on. Right now, if you were to go sit down with a particular seller or buyer, do you feel like you would know exactly what to say all the time? Probably not, because scenarios change, right? All right, next. Okay, so this is kind of what I was mentioning before, but I think it's a really cool like diagram, right? So there are the people that go to every single training for life, right? It could be personal, it could be professional, and it's very ignorance-based, right? I know what I know, and I'll ignore anything else. Right? It's like, but they might go, and then they're like, yeah, but that doesn't fit with the goals that I already have learned in my life, right? And then it just leads to nowhere. Like it doesn't go anywhere. Whereas the learning-based mindset, kind of what we were talking about, is like, how do you take the information that you get and you break through a ceiling? right? So if you were to think of E to P, which is the last one, right, the last personal perspective, you hit ceilings all the time. And then it's like, you got to learn something to try to break through that, whether it's a system, whether it's efficiency, whether it's hiring, leverage, whatever it is, right? So this is knowing for doing sake. So how many times do we learn something and we never actually use it?
All the time.
All the time, right? All the time. I have a person in my life that like literally will just read Wikipedia. So you ask a question and that information is there. It could be like anything, right? Like all of a sudden you ask, man, that's really interesting. I wonder what this is. And it's like, oh, I know that. It's like a Rolodex of information, right? But some people like, again, are you ever going to use some of it or do you use it?
Are you practicing to go on Jeopardy?
No, I think it's just a matter of, they just like knowing, right? They like having an answer to things. Think of a situation, and I'd love participation since there's 4 of us online in here. What's something that you went to and you never actually applied it to anything? Geometry, okay, all right. I could say that like, like calculus, any of
Right away.
those, like, yeah, you're like, okay. And,
I mean, I read Atomic Habits and I don't really know if I like applied any of it.
okay.
But I read a lot of books like that and that's just like what came to mind, but I don't like
So I
apply.
think those are interesting, right? Those are gonna come up later. A lot of people read growth books, including myself, right? And then you're excited when you read it. You're like, I'm gonna do this. What is the 2-week, the 2-week,
Year.
the 2-week year, or whatever, right? You break everything down to 2 weeks and you do it for like 4 days. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that was a really good book. I'm gonna move on to the next one. Right? Like, it's just, it's interesting when people do that. Okay, next. So talking about that, right? We've got these 4 levels. Where would you say you spend the most time? Right? So you've got the unconscious incompetence. We don't know what we don't know. You've got the conscious incompetence. We now know what we don't know. You got the conscious competence where now we know. And then you have the unconscious where now we just do it without thinking about it. Tying your shoes. You do without thinking about it. You're not like, you wrap the thing, the bunny goes around the, you don't do that anymore, right? Brush your teeth. You get up, you walk, right? Like those things, those are all things that you don't think about, right? How often do we sit in this piece and actually realize this, right? I use it a lot in scripts, like, you don't know, you don't know. We should meet because you don't know what you don't know. You can have judgment. I think we have a lot of judgments on things, right? Where it's like, oh no, I do know. Do you? I don't know. Where do you think you sit most of the time in your life? With information that you get?
Conscious incompetence.
I would say this is the majority of people,
Oh, now.
right? Like, oh, we know what we don't know. Do we ever go past that to like, oh, now we know, like now I really got to this piece and now it all of a sudden becomes a habit. Like what you were just saying, right? You read the book, you're like, oh, this would work, good to know. You're like, might even got to like, I understand it, like now I know, and then you're like, well, I'm not doing it.
I feel like the between 3 and 4 is like practicing it for like years. So like things like you learn like in therapy or whatever, and you like go over them like a million times before you actually start implementing them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and this is like for us, like if we just pertain this to our business, right? And maybe it's not just our business, maybe it's relationships, like kids, friends, partnerships, whatever it is. How do we talk to people? How do we overcome complications? How do we overcome disagreements? Like those things, I would not say people sit in this as a habit of how they actually communicate. Right? It's usually like, anger, frustration. You know,
Emotional tie.
like there's something that's tied because we haven't made the questions, and you and I talk about this often. You haven't made the questions enough, and they haven't become a habit where it just rolls off the tongue. Right? Like when something comes up, like it's just ingrained in me. Like sometimes, I mean, Candy will always be like, she's, oh, well, it just happened. I'm like, no, I think I've just been practicing it for so many years that it just happens, right? It's just natural. Whether I know it or not, it's natural. Like last night I was sitting, a great example, a friend of mine, and this is real probably for any of us. And her husband is the head of the ER at this particular hospital, and he hires a lot of people to like come in, move here. So there's opportunity, right? For me as an agent, yada, yada, yada. Just so happens he had someone come out, reach out to me and say, hey, we're moving here. So last night she randomly came over for a glass of wine on the porch as we were going to watch the thunderstorm. And she said to me, she's like, so do you run the office or do you sell real estate or do you do both? Right. And in that moment, whatever in my brain clicked to this piece, I all of a sudden like word vomited this beautiful thing out to her. Right. And it was not because like I knew in that moment, it's just I'm so used to saying it. And then she's like, oh, okay. But like for us, it's probably the same thing. Agents are like, I don't know. Oh yeah, I forgot you sell or whatever, you know what I mean? And you have to have that elevator speech. That's just a habit that comes out. So let me ask, how many of you have that right now? Like if someone was to ask you, what would you say to them? If that question came up, like you sell real estate or you heard someone talking about something in line, what would that look like?
A lot of fumbling.
Okay,
I fumble my way through it beautifully, but it's a fumble.
okay. I fumbled beautifully. So I'm more in that like 2-3 range.
And then back up and try again and yeah, messy.
Amanda, what about you?
If somebody asks what I do or
I mean, I think it's one where you're sitting in line and you hear something or you're, like the Raz just comes up, right? And you're like, oh, I heard that. Right? Or a question comes up, like, what does that look like? Like, you feel like you have the habit of what that,
I mean, if it's
Word.
a stranger and I just hear two other people talking about real estate, I won't say anything.
okay? Why?
I mean, I like have in the past and I just think Minnesotans are so weird and they're so offended if like you know something about them and then you're like saying like, oh, okay, you guys are looking, you're like, Minnesotans are very, very touch and go.
Okay. This is all true.
I think it, like, when my clients who are not from Minnesota are so much easier to communicate with.
Okay,
They're just more direct.
okay. Is there something online?
Yeah, online, she says, for me, it takes time to practice until it becomes a habit and I don't need to review. So between 2 and 3 mostly there, just 2 and 3. And then, also the other dual career agent, says I slipped to saying I teach out of habit.
All right, so let's switch from communication. Let's switch to like health, right? So this is personal, right? How many of us know like we know what we don't know, right? And then it's like, oh, we know. Okay, so yesterday I might have went to Taco Bell. Kids were like, Taco Bell. I was like, okay, do I know Taco Bell's not good for me? Yes. Yes, I know this, right? Does it become a habit, right? No, it's a one-time thing. But when you think about health, right? You're like, oh, I should be going for a walk. I should be on this, constant health kick, right? Whether or not it's eating, whether or not it's exercise, whether or not it's putting sunscreen on, all of these things. Where do you function in that realm? Maybe on the personal side, it doesn't have to be health, but anything personal. Which space do you normally function in?
Which is interesting, right? Because I feel like that more easily comes between like a 3 and a 4. It's like Do you brush your teeth? Yeah, of course. Do you take a shower? You know, it's like that kind of habit. Do you exercise?
And they don't always have to be
Right.
good habits, right?
That's true too.
Like a habit could be, hey, I got really stressed out and yesterday I was like, well, it's gonna storm. Let's go grab a bottle of wine and have a bottle of like glass of wine on the porch, right? Like it doesn't have to be good habits, but we create these things. Whether it doesn't have to be like, ooh, good information that you still know it, and then you still do it, creates the habit. Okay, next. I would be like, that slide, I would actually be conscious of over time, right? When you're reading a book or you're going to a training, be like, what am I doing with it? Almost like rate yourself, right? And be like, am I turning this into a habit? Do I want to turn this into a habit? Or does this go into some like, file back in my brain that will come out maybe someday when I need it, right? Because I think there's a space for that too. Okay, so high achievers, they reach their goals by making training, education, and self-development the fundamental piece of their action plan. When you think of the most successful people in your life, what are some of their attributes, or what do they do, or what do they talk about?
Routine.
Okay, routine. What else?
Goal
Discipline.
setting. Sorry.
Okay,
Discipline to do it in the mundane.
okay. What else?
Grit.
That's it?
I think grit.
Grit.
Right.
Sacrifice.
I. There, I.
Grit. I. No. Earlier.
A,
The A of the I.
This one always strikes me, like the first time I ever did a personal perspectives, it was shortly before, like I went to Mega Agent Camp.
Yeah.
And so many of the high achievers that are on stage are also super fit. And, that correlation has always stayed with me because, and Gary Keller, like when you talk about like, when he puts out like, this is how you plan your day, right? Exercise is always in there. Health is always in there. But it's just like, oh, they have this mindset that they're like, look at the things up there. They have a routine. They set goals. They have discipline. They will sacrifice. Like, they're like, well, I'm not going to eat that cake because I'm going to eat this salad instead. I mean, it's like, but
So
every-
let's
just a
talk about that
interesting thing.
this piece, right? Because I think people are like, oh, fit person, whatever, right? When you think of being fit or healthy, right? What are you doing? What are you doing? Like when that happens, like what are you doing?
Making certain choices.
Yes, and I guess more or less like you're running your body a very different way, right? You're conscious of what kind of exercise you're doing, right? You're conscious of what you're eating. Think of a car, right? If you don't put oil in the car or the right gas, the car will break. You don't change the tires, it won't run right. When it's your body, I think we fill our brains with crap, right? A lot of times I'll do the same thing. I'll sit there and I'll scroll. I mean, I don't know how much information I can get in 2 minutes by scrolling. A lot. And it's overwhelming and most of it's not positive, right? So when you say fit, it's like, what are you putting in your brain, which is usually reading and information,
Conversations you're having with people.
or people around you in conversations, right? When you talk about the other piece of health, it's like, okay, how'd you start your day out? Right? Did you eat a donut? Or did you hydrate yourself and put protein into your body with all the other nutrients, right? That actually runs your body correctly. And I tell you, when you go to like mega camp or anything, especially when you go to mega leadership sometimes, the gym is packed from 5 o'clock until 7 o'clock because it starts at 8 and it is packed. People are doing all different things, right? Some people are running, some people are biking, some people are doing yoga. Doesn't matter what it is, right? But that's their starting off the day. I think it's a great point because it also has, you have a routine, they probably have a goal that they have set of some sort, they have a ton of discipline, and they sacrifice quite a bit. Right? You either have to go to bed earlier, you have to get up earlier, you're sacrificing something in that. You're not eating the cake, or eating just a little bit of cake, right? All right, I want you to take out a pen and paper, do it on your phone, whatever. Out of 10, where do you rate yourself on all of these? And I want it personal, so like personal side, professional side, out of 10, where do you rank yourself? Like 10 out of 10 being like, man, I crushed this. Right? I am absolutely crushing this. 1 being like, this is actually non-existent in my life. We're going to I want each of you to put, I'm gonna ask you each a number and we're gonna see what the average is on this, right? Because I think it's gonna be interesting. So, routine personally. Heather,
4. 3 for goal setting. Discipline is a 5. Grit is a 7. And the 4 sacrifice is a 4.
okay? Let's do professional.
At 5, 3, 4, 4, and 5.
Okay, Amanda,
2, wait, sorry, 7. 1. 7. 7. 9, but I will say, I don't feel like things are sacrifices, but I know I do make them.
professionally.
2. 1. 2. 5. 8.
Okay, Andy,
Personal, 8, 4, 7, 8, 7. 6, 8, 5, 5, 6.
anybody online want to participate?
Yeah, Julie says personal 8,
Are we going routine goals that, like, that,
think so.
okay?
Personal 8, professional 7. And then, oh no, professional 6. Is that just for the first one?
Okay, so do me a favor, add these up. So we've got 15, 19 is the total here. Okay, we've got 8 is the total here. 14, 19 total here. 14. Here. And,
20.
okay, divided by 3. What's
The average is about 7.
for all of them?
Well, oh, sorry, the last one where it's 20. Sorry, I wasn't
Okay,
paying
so
attention.
this is 7. This will probably be,
What is that, 22?
22,
That's about,
yeah,
it's gonna be
7.
7 also.
okay,
What's above that?
this is 19.
About 7.
8,
Up 2.5.
okay? And then,
9, actually, that should be 3, sorry, that should be setting average should be 3, it's closer to 3.
and then 7, okay? So then we've got 13 and 12 and 7, 11, 14. Okay, so 7,
And all the others are 6s. Or close averages to 6, so.
okay, so. Why? Why do you think that is the lowest? I mean, this is like across the board, right? Personally and professionally. Because if we can nail these ones, right? If you can nail routine, discipline, grit, and sacrifice. This one becomes easier.
I feel like that what you just said, like if you nail the other ones, then goal setting becomes easier. I don't set goals, like personal goals, like I don't care what I weigh. I don't care if I have abs. I don't care how many calories I eat a day. I don't care. Like all I care about is like, did I eat well? Did I hydrate? Did I exercise?
That's
Like,
a goal though, right?
yeah, but there are no like quantitative factors with it. So like when it comes to goals, like I don't think quantitatively, I think like qualitatively. I think like, what is the quality of my workout? What is the quality of the food I put in my body? Like, what is the quality of like the people I'm around?
How do you quantify quality though?
You can't. You cannot.
So it's like
you
you
can't
determine like it was a good workout or a bad workout. It was a great walk. or a
Yeah,
bad
like-
walk.
Like it was challenging. I think like, was I breathing hard? Was I like lifting heavy? Like, did I work up a sweat? Like, did I feel good about that? It's more about like that versus like, I never look at the number of calories I burn on I have an Apple Watch. You know what I like that for? I like to know when the class is going to end. I like to see like if I have messages coming in, like I don't actually care about anything else. I look at my heart rate sometimes, but like, that's more of like a health thing.
And that's okay, right? But I think even in quality of it, there's still a piece that there's a number. There's always a number to set for a goal, right? Whether or not it's, I want 5 walks a week. I want to do 2 classes of yoga, right? Like, and then it's the decision that you can make to say, okay, I did those 2 classes and quality wise, one was great, one wasn't. Or, you know what I mean? But like,
So
there's still like a piece of that you can set as a goal. Cause I think you're like a lot of people where they're like, I don't have any personal goals. And it's like, okay,
My goal is just to be healthy, like, but like that means different things to different people.
so what does healthy mean to you? Like if you were, let's just say you do all of those things, right? But you have high blood pressure. I don't know. I'm just thinking of
Yeah.
something that, you know what I mean? Cause there's still like, you go to the doctor, you have a checkup and it's like, you could think you're healthy, feel healthy. And then you go there and they're like, you're not healthy.
So that would
These
be,
things don't hit a metric, right? So
that would be something where then I would I would like pay attention to metrics, but I don't have anything like that. And like part of why I don't have anything like that is because something a long time ago happened to my dad, which like flipped a switch in my brain to just like live in a very healthy lifestyle. So like for me, it's not like a quantitative thing.
okay. How about for you?
I think number one for me, goal setting is difficult because, well, it's hard to determine which is the goal that will get you to where you want to go, number one, but also if I don't hit the goal, I don't want to continue thinking I'm a loser or losing at it all the time, because that's just where my head goes. So goal setting for me would be, I could do something qualitative like that and tell myself I did a great job. And it means that, it may not mean that I actually got there. Yeah. But I wouldn't have to also be saying, oh, well, I didn't. But be honest.
Yeah, I am not good at setting goals. I think goals are hard to set too. It's like the Cheesecake Factory menu to me. There's like just so much, I have a hard time being like, this is my thing, like the one thing. I think that's an amazing concept. I don't know what that, yeah, it's hard for me to pinpoint like, this is the goal, this is what I'm going after.
So I think this is great. I mean, 3 people in the room. Julie probably feels the same. I want to be cautious of what I say, right? Because I think there's things when you think about goal setting, right? And even in business, right? People are like, I'm not money based, or I am not unit based, or I'm not this, or I'm not, you know what I mean? Whatever that is. I think, in my opinion, we tell ourselves something so that this doesn't happen, right? Like if I was to think of what are the things that are most important to me, which I think most of you know, right? Or yes, it's like, oh, it's your kids. It's not just it's my own like peace of mind. So when you talk about living a healthy life, right? For me, in order to do that, I could say it's qualitative and I could actually say, yeah, I'm going to go work out for 5 times a week and not do squat during that workout. It could be a really crappy workout, right? And that wouldn't matter if I was like, yeah, but I still hit 5. Do you know what I mean? I think there's things that we can set here that might not even be a healthy lifestyle. Like, hey, I want to take a vacation. I want to be able to vacation once a month. I want to be able to vacation once a quarter. I want to be able to see my family that doesn't live here. I want to read 12 books. I mean, there's things, right, in our personal lives that are important to us that we do. I want to have dinner with a friend at least once a week. Like there are still goals that you can set in life that matter. And that could actually be like the quality of a relationship, right? Like, hey, I want to see 40 friends, or I want to have 40 friend dates throughout the year. Whether that's a happy hour, it's a breakfast, it's a dinner, whatever it is, right? These things are just you have to reflect on what's important this year, what's important for this month, or what's important for this quarter that I can set a goal for.
That seems, I mean, I value it and I think you're absolutely right. That seems so difficult when I'm just trying to make it through the day. And I think that by setting the goals, it would be easier to make it through the day. But when I'm too busy trying to make it through the day or keep my eyes above the waterline, the thought of setting a goal is overwhelming when I'm already overwhelmed. Does that make?
I think that makes perfect sense, and that's why the goal should be set, right? Is because the
Right.
chaos is running your day.
Right?
And
Yeah.
when you allow the chaos to run your day, this goes out the window, this definitely is out the window, this is non-existent. This can be here, but it's gonna exhaust you,
Right.
right? And then at this point, the sacrifice you're making is yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say routine
Do
might
you
be
have,
good for you.
do you have big goals
Anything.
though? Like, are you good at setting like big life goals?
Oh, yeah, those are
You and I
good.
should, like,
Yeah.
I got day goals all day.
Yeah,
Maybe you and I should, mastermind together.
right?
Cause I feel like, oh, every day, like I wake up and I'm like, these are the things I'm gonna get done. This is what's happening.
My list
But
is.
then like, when my husband and I sit down and we're like, what are your goals? I'm like, man, whew, I don't know.
Question. Hmm.
What do we wanna do?
You can replace goals with, I mean, you could replace it with anything, right? Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's a checklist. That's what they think goals are, right? Well, the checklist is getting you to something. Right? Like, so, and again, let's go back to the high achievers. We're talking about this because we're talking about high achievers, right? I guarantee at some point in time, high achievers felt all of these things. Not saying you're not high achievers. I'm saying the highest of achievers, they thought all these things, same things, right? You think about basketball players. I think it was Kobe Bryant that they had interviewed, and he's like, I can't tell you how many times I've missed holidays because the sacrifice I had to make, the routine, and the goal was to become the best in whatever it was. And if there's nothing here that is so important to you, it's never going to matter. You're right. You'll sit there and you'll be like, oh, I failed. Or you're going to be like, okay, I failed. What's the new way to get there? But if the goal doesn't actually matter, you will beat yourself up every single time. Because you're failing at something that's not that important to you.
I just read something too that I can't remember if it was Jay Papasan put it out. He was having a conversation with Gary Keller, but he was saying if they walked down the street, how many people would be able to say like, hey, what's the goal that you have? Like, that is like one of the hardest things for people to say, right? But if you have that one piece, the whole thing was like, if you have that piece, then the routine, the discipline, all of that stuff will fall in line. And so I am not there, which is why every day, like, I have to write down, like, it is kind of like a checklist, but it's like my goals, right? Because I don't necessarily, it's not habit to be like, this is my end goal, like, for the week, this is what, I want to have achieved. So every day I have to be like, okay, so what do I need to do today to get me to that? And hopefully someday it'll just be like, oh, I know what I need to do every day.
Well, you think about school, right? Like I think about what is your goal as a parent? To get your kid to graduate. Then you either send them off to college or they find a job. That's a goal. We can set those goals because those goals are what is already set for us by society, essentially, right? You as a kid, all you want to do is graduate high school. And then you're like, I'm gonna go do this. And then I'm gonna go get a job. These are all goals, right? What I find sometimes like almost sad or like, man, we focus on this achievement piece and yet this side really, this affects me like a lot, hearing this from people, right? When it's like, I don't have any personal goal setting. This is like the most important like piece of your life is the personal side, right? So when I coach people, it's not just professional. Because if you're not setting goals personally and achieving them or feeling like, hey, I'm moving forward in something, no matter what it is, like, hey, I'm a year older, but my stats for health are the same, right? Like, meaning I still have a great bill of health. This is the plan to get me there. Eating whole foods, going to, you know what I mean? Like going and doing these different exercises, like that's a plan, that's a goal. Right? Okay, next one. I think it's actually a video. 2-minute video. So I think there's a few things from that, right? When you think of passion, right? When we go back to goal setting, each one of us is passionate about something personally, right? At least one thing. do you have something to reach towards? I think about John Butler, right? Because you guys are talking about personal goals and it's like, it could be health, it could be big things, it's overwhelming. John and Meg had an actual goal to go to every single rock band on this list, right? Like a concert. I think he said after he came home last week or 2 weeks ago, they had one band they hadn't went to so far on that list. And I think he said it was over like 40 concerts or something crazy, right? Like, but that's their connection piece. That's what they're passionate about. Like, that's not this big thing where he's, you know, reaching calorie goals or whatever. Like, I think that's where our brain goes, but there's so many other things. Candy, you have one where you want to hit all 50 states. You know what I mean? So it's like things like that are still personal goals. I think we just limit what our thought process is on it. Okay, so on that, we're gonna kind of go through these. This is essentially just, we got about 9 minutes. All of the next slide is like every KW book that you could potentially read, right? So I'm like, those ones, if you haven't read, obviously go back. If you have read them, even go back and read them again. Next slide, just kind of shows them some different materials. I think what I wanted us to do for about 2 minutes is write one goal. Think of what you're passionate about. This could be professional or you know, personal or professional. One goal that you can share with your neighbor afterwards that we can touch base on at the end of the year. And if you don't want it to be the end of the year, maybe it's like we do it at the end of the summer. You guys can pick the time frame on it. But think of something you're passionate about and write one goal down. And just like, I'm not writing. I'm not doing it.
You're asking like the people who rated goal setting the lowest.
Yeah, I know. And that's why we're gonna figure something out. Okay, let's start with this. What's one thing you're passionate about personally? Let's work through it together so that it's not like overwhelming. What's one thing you're passionate about?
Go first, my health.
Okay, health. All right, so we got health. What are you passionate about? Travel, okay?
You can take
I don't want to be passionate about gardening.
Okay.
But I just know it's there. It's looming.
Okay.
What is it that I'm passionate about? Okay, this is gonna sound really stupid, but how many women are on here? I would figuring out this whole stupid menopausal thing.
Okay,
It's-
so
it's
I
drove me
think
crazy.
that's actually a great one, right? So
Very
let's
brilliant.
start with that, right? So what's one thing that you can do as a goal for that? I know right off the bat, because I know someone who teaches classes on that. She lives in my neighborhood and she's a registered nurse, where it's like, find a class or a webinar to go, because there is a group of women that she has go to those every single week, right? So goal could be find a class.
Yeah.
Look it up. Ask someone who has a connection with that. Find a book. Find a podcast. I mean, you could pick anything for
Okay.
that goal,
Okay.
right? And then once you find it, next step is I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna attend it. I'm gonna read it, right? So like those are the pieces. Like, you say it's stupid, it's not.
I would
Right,
just like to I would really like to understand the science of it. I know that it's like choices that you make really do impact how you live, but there's a true scientific change.
Yeah, it's 100%. Your
That's
hormones like
So
stop
part of that too,
producing.
right? There's
Yeah.
probably an actual podcast on
Yeah.
that piece of like, you follow that and then you can start learning that. Or it's a book. I don't know what you like, right? Some people like listening, some people like reading. Okay, all right, health. How can you write a goal around health?
I don't know. I mean, I guess when I go to the doctor and they tell me nothing is wrong with me, that's
Yeah.
like a good indicator of my health, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, how can we help with that? I'm not the only one with suggestions on it. Like, do I'm gonna ask, like, I don't know any of these questions. Like, you have something that you exercise, or there's a specific thing that you like to do.
Yeah, I go to
right?
classes at the
Okay.
gym.
Do you do that every single week?
Yes, but I do, but the number of times I go per week is not actually related to my health. It's actually related to the cost of my gym membership.
Okay.
So I think I'm like budget motivated also. So I'm like, if I'm not using it, then I would not belong to that gym. And I love that gym. Also, like I have a lot of friends there, and every time I go to a class, like I'm usually meeting up with them. So there's like a social aspect too.
So my brain immediately goes to how do you make that budget friendly thing like a priority for you, right? So that all of a sudden now ties into the professional one where it's like, hey, if this is what makes me like part of my health journey that's important to me, how do I make this happen? So that I can go there whenever I want with whoever I want, because it's not only my health, it's also my relationships. I would, again, try to work around that piece of like, okay, at what point would I be like that? I still want to be in this budget, but it's not something that stresses me out or I have to think about, right? It's just, this is part of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I also think like you can get business from having like different social groups, which like wasn't the reason why I joined, but like obviously it's like
But now you
Like,
get
I
a
live-
write-off.
in a condo building and I've sold like 7 or 8 condos in that building. If I lived in a single family home, I probably would not know my neighbors as well as I
Yeah.
know all my condo neighbors.
Yep.
So like living somewhere expensive, I knew there would be an incentive. I knew I would like, this would happen.
Yeah.
So I guess like part of the goal is putting myself in the right rooms.
Okay. Okay. Travel.
And then Julie also said pickleball.
Julie, I love your
It's her
pickleball.
passion. So travel, so yes, I went 50 states in 50 years, so I actually very recently wrote down like my trips that I need to take in the next so many years to make that happen. And then a budget. Sat down and figured out our budget for a trip so that we can kind of make that happen.
Love it.
So
Love it. All right, we have 3 minutes. Next thing is AHAs. So what did you take from this particular class that you're going to implement? Because as we started it, right, you can learn things and you can not implement anything. And be like, wow, that was a really nice hour that Amy sat up there with Chuck, who was whining most of the time.
Maybe like shifting my mindset around goals and goal setting, because I really do not think like quantitatively, but like, you know, that is something I could learn to do.
Yeah, I would agree, right? Like, I think it's a mindset shift. I think a lot of times, I mean, last week you were in here with Rick, right? I have been talking to him about units versus volume. So I'm like, numbers don't lie, right? Like they don't. And I think people are scared of numbers, no matter what it is, right? Like you're scared of numbers when you go look at a bank account. You can be scared of numbers when you look at a scale. You can be scared of numbers when all of a sudden you look at the gas price. I mean, numbers are scary, but they're real, right?
I also think goal setting for a lot of people causes like disappointment. And I don't think for me, because I don't think of them the same way, I don't get disappointed. Like if I go to the gym 3 days a week instead of 4 or 5, I am not thinking twice about that. I'm like, that was just the week I had.
Yeah.
Like, and I just keep moving on. And then I'm like, okay, well, next week I better make sure I like plan my schedule better so I don't miss that Tuesday class. Like, I don't think of it the same way. And I think a lot of people do get like upset over missing certain goals.
I would say that what you just said and how you said it that was just the week and then I have to shift.
Yeah.
So that is still part of goals, right? Because you're like, okay, if that didn't happen, I'm not going to sit there and beat myself up about it, right?
Mhm.
But I'm going to shift something for the next week so that it does happen for me, right? I would also say part of that mindset is the goal important? I think we get let down when we put 1 million goals out there and then you have to try to track them. And then you're like, well, I didn't hit any of them. right? I mean, I think about the office goals. Last year, we had all these goals. They were super important. We took 2 days to say how important they were. And I think we hit 3 of them. And those 3 were the most important, quite honestly, right? And those were the ones that we tracked. Those were the ones that we knew where we were at. The other ones, it was like, I'm not even sure why we made these goals. Because they weren't important and it felt like failure when we looked at it. And I was like, not really. Because that wasn't going to get us to where we wanted to be anyways, right? So I think goals are overwhelming because I think we put them out and then we don't think about why we made them. And a lot of times it's like, are you willing to do the things that it takes to get to that goal? And if you're going to say no, don't put it down. Like, don't disappoint yourself. But if you're like, yeah, I am willing to do these things and it's going to be hard, like, work towards it. One more aha.
I'm beginning to think that goal setting could be freedom filling rather than coming at it from a position of, I don't want to say scarcity, but if you know what the goal is, that frees you up from doing all the things that don't really count toward the goal. So if your goal is to lose 10 pounds or whatever, it frees you up to focus on that one and all of the things that might creep in and that you feel like you either have to partake of or you have to be scarce from or whatever. It kind of sets you free to not worry about that because the thing that you're concentrating on is the goal.
Can I give you unsolicited advice?
Absolutely. I'll
Okay.
take any and everything.
When people make health goals and it's like, I want to lose 10 pounds, I think that can create like so much disappointment and anxiety.
does.
But what people should be focusing on is just like, okay, how am I gonna move my body each day? And what days am I okay resting? And then what am I gonna eat? And then like, I'm gonna eat my healthy meal and then I'm gonna have dessert. Like, I don't think anyone should ever deprive themselves of anything because then they just binge. I just don't like goals that are like, I'm gonna lose this much weight because that's like this idea here. And then we miss all the other stuff that we have to do. And then you're going to miss the goal because you're not doing, like, you don't know when you're gonna exercise or when you're gonna be okay and like let yourself take the time off. And like, I don't know. That's why I have a problem with goals because I'm like, it's so much more than like.
Result though, but right, weight should be a result versus the actual goal.
Right, because what does 10
Because,
Right.
even matter?
like, what you're saying is like, the goal is I'm gonna move my body 3 times a day.
And you're gonna feel good.
But it frees you up to do that.
Yes.
Or even if you're making phone calls or whatever, it frees you up. Like if you say you're gonna talk to 10 people or whatever, that can kind of freak you out. But if you instead envision of, I'm gonna have 10 opportunities to have 10 different conversations.
Right.
That kind of,
Well, it's like
makes
how we
my
talk
head
about
think-
goal setting, right?
Yeah.
Like, instead of them saying, I'm gonna have 2 appointments like this week, right? That's a really hard goal to put out there because you're like, where's it coming from? Where you start out with, I'm gonna lead generate for a half hour each day, or I'm gonna make 20 dials each day. Then it goes into, I'm gonna make 20 contacts, not just the dials, because now you know the conversion. So to your point, like, instead of them saying, I'm gonna lose 10 pounds, I'm going to, I'm gonna walk 10 minutes, 7 days a week, or I'm gonna walk 10 minutes, 5 days a week.
Or just get on Mojo for like the calls, like
You know
just
what I
get on
mean? Like,
Mojo and don't think about it. And then when you hit the goal, then
Well, it's like you gotta start at that before you can put the big one, and the big one is the overwhelming thing, because you're like, well, how do I even get there? Right? And that does become overwhelming, like 10 pounds, right? If that was
Right.
let's just say that's the goal. That's more of like, in my mind, like when you think of like your 411, that's like a annual goal. Not saying that it's right, but like, and then you work down from it. Like, what are we gonna do each week? So that then you can schedule your days out.
you don't end up with, $1 million in your 401k. It doesn't happen that way. You have to actually just
Yeah.
make small baby steps.
Yeah.
And while it's a beautiful goal, oftentimes we get stuck in the monotony of the little baby steps to get.
All right, it is 12:05. Whatever your aha is and your step or your thing that you're gonna implement, write it down. Text yourself. Don't just walk out and not do it. Fair? All right, go enjoy your Tuesday.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Thanks.
I was like, yeah, you're welcome.
Are you in an accountability group?
No, I'm not an accountability.
Yeah,
group.
it's something with me.
You should be. I mean,